David had always been dedicated to his career. As a project manager, he often traveled for business, something that never bothered him, until he got married. Before, he saw the trips as an exciting part of the job, a sign of his success. But after tying the knot with Rachel, traveling became a burden. First, he hated leaving her behind. Second, Rachel never handled his absences well. Every time he packed a suitcase, she threw a fit, full-blown tantrums where she threatened to leave, screaming that she was going to move in with her mother because she couldn't take it anymore. David always tried to reason with her, explaining that it was part of his job and he had worked hard to reach this level. But Rachel didn't care. She'd storm out the door, and every single time, David had to run after her, apologize, and beg her to come home. Eventually she would calm down and things would go back to normal, for a while. "I don't get it," one of his co-workers said over lunch one day. "Why put up with all that drama? Slam your fist on the table, yell a little, put her in her place. She's walking all over you." David just rolled his eyes. Trying to explain the nuances of marriage to a single guy was pointless. As far as he was concerned, he was handling things the right way. Besides, Rachel still drove him crazy in a good way. Curvy with long dark hair and those mesmerizing eyes. Despite all the screaming fits, he was still head over heels for her. 2 years into their marriage, after countless emotional meltdowns, Rachel announced she was pregnant. David was thrilled, even though they hadn't planned for a baby just yet. They had the means to support a child, so why not? 9 months later, their daughter Melody was born. For a little while after giving birth, Rachel seemed to mellow out. She was too busy doting on the baby to pick fights with David. But as Melody grew older, Rachel's old habits crept back. One evening, as David packed for yet another business trip, Rachel erupted again. She flung his open suitcase into the hallway, scattering his neatly packed clothes everywhere. "Go if you want," she screamed. "But don't bother coming back." Their daughter, startled by the commotion, woke up in her room and started crying. "Go calm her down," David sighed, rubbing his temples. "And maybe calm yourself down too." Rachel stormed off. An hour later she returned, suddenly sweet as honey. She wrapped her arms around him, her voice soft and apologetic. "Honey, I'm sorry," she murmured, pressing her lips to his neck. "You know how I am." David exhaled deeply and pulled her close. He loved her despite everything. By the time Melody was 3, David had had enough of all the traveling. He found a new position that wouldn't require him to leave home. But before officially starting, he had one last trip to complete. When he told Rachel, she practically jumped for joy. It felt like she had been nagging him about this forever, and finally she had won. 3 weeks later, David returned home, excited to celebrate his new job and the more stable life ahead. That afternoon, he decided to surprise Melody by picking her up from preschool and taking her out for ice cream. "How have you been, sweet pea?" he asked, smiling at her in the rearview mirror as they drove away from the daycare. "I'm good," Melody chirped. Then, in a conspiratorial whisper, she added, "Wanna hear a secret?" David chuckled, expecting some innocent school gossip. "Sure, Mel. Tell me." Her next words hit him like a freight train. "Whenever you're away, Mommy's friend Nick picks me up from school with her. Sometimes he comes over to our house too." David's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He forced a casual tone. "Oh, are you sure?" Melody nodded enthusiastically. David's mind raced. Who the hell was Nick? For days, he wrestled with the revelation, trying to figure out how to confirm whether Rachel was cheating. Finally, he confided in his best friend, Kyle. "Hire a private investigator," Kyle suggested. "But what if they only meet when I'm traveling?" David asked, dreading the answer. He'll scoff. "Please. If they're fooling around, they don't care whether you're home or not. If anything, they just get bolder when you're away." Realizing Kyle had a point, David took his advice. For the next 2 weeks, David was a bundle of nerves. Rachel, strangely enough, was surprisingly calm. No tantrums, no outbursts, And somehow that felt like the biggest red flag of all. Finally, the day came for the investigator to report back. They arranged to meet in a secluded parking garage at the mall. David sat in his car, heart pounding. When he heard the knock on his window, he nearly jumped out of his skin. "Mr. David?" the investigator asked, dressed sharply in a blue overcoat. He handed David a plain, unsealed envelope. "What's this?" David's voice was hoarse. "See for yourself." Inside was a stack of photos, each with a timestamp. In them, Rachel was cozying up to a man David had never seen before. Some photos showed them talking, others captured them kissing openly, and in one particularly damning shot, the man had his hand under Rachel's sweater. David swallowed hard. "Did you get his name?" The investigator nodded. "It's all in the report." David flipped through the papers. The man's name was Dennis. He worked at Rachel's company. David's head spun. How long had this been going on? How long had Rachel been lying so blatantly? After paying the rest of the investigator's fee, David drove home in a daze. He dropped Melody off at his parents' house. There was no way he was letting his daughter witness what was about to unfold. When he walked into the house, Rachel was in the kitchen, probably expecting their usual routine. Instead, he tossed the photos onto the table. Rachel glanced at them, then met his eyes. There wasn't a shred of remorse in her expression. "You spied on me," she hissed. "Have you lost your mind?" David had braced himself for tears, maybe even an apology. But instead Rachel scoffed. "I was going to leave you soon anyway," she said, smirking. "I would have told you eventually." She even had the audacity to laugh at how much money he'd wasted on a detective. David felt sick. "You have a week to move out," he said coldly. Rachel snorted. "I only need a day." He was shattered. How could she be so cold? Why had she kept up the charade for so long? Furious and humiliated, David demanded she sign paperwork granting him full custody of Melody. Rachel surprisingly agreed. She promised she'd visit their daughter. She never did. She didn't move in with Dennis either. Instead, people saw her around town with different men, often drunk. Deep down, David felt relief. At least the truth was out. At least she was gone. He never fully recovered from the betrayal, but he stopped looking for a new partner. Instead, he focused on raising Melody. He took her traveling, just the two of them making up for all the lost time. Her grandmother stepped in to provide a motherly presence, and together, they built a new routine, a peaceful, happy life without Rachel's chaos. Years later, when Melody was a teenager, she finally asked about her mother. David told her the truth. After a long silence, Melody gave him a small smile. "You did the right thing, Dad." And for the first time in a long time, David felt at peace.